Greetings, Rabbi Aaron Boxt here from Temple Beth Shalom, back once again for my podcast. I think it's been a couple of weeks since my previous one, so let's go ahead and just jump right in. What I'm thinking about today is something that is appropriate and something that really affects, impacts all of us. Of course, I'm talking about life and death. We all know that the moment that we're born, every day that we live, we move one step closer to ultimately another step in life, which is the dying or decaying of our bodies. Um, I don't mean to sound cold or uncaring or unfeeling, but that's just the truth of life. Um, and when you are someone who is a clergy person or you work in a medical field, whether you're a nurse or a doctor, an EMT, or any of those that work in those kinds of fields, you know that life is precious, and we need to do everything we can to help people live as best of a life as they possibly can. But at the end of the day, at some point, the body is going to die. It's just a fact of life, and we have to accept that. And as the body gets older, the functions of our bodies tend to start to wear down. Um, I once told a group of people that I was studying with that, you know, the old saying that the older you get, the wiser your parents become. And that's so true. The older we get, the more we realize the things that we thought we knew so much about when we were younger, we really didn't know anything. And as we get older, we realize our parents were a lot smarter than we think they are. But there's another piece to that. As we get older, our parents become younger. Think about that thought for a moment. When we're babies, when we're young kids, our parents take care of us and all that that entails. And as we get older and our parents become older, at some point our parents become in such a state that they need to be taken care of like we were taken care of by them as babies. And ultimately, in a, I believe, what would be a functioning society, our parents take care of us as babies and children. And then as they get older and they get closer towards the end of their lives, we then turn around and take care of them. That, to me, should be the direction that we all take. Um, and I find it, you know, with a father that's over 80 years old and a brother and a sister, we recognize that, you know, as our father gets older, at some point we're going to have to start taking care of him. Now, thankfully, our father is in really good health right now, and so that's not for any time soon, we hope. But there will come a time when that will be necessary. Which brings me to another question, another idea, I guess I should say. You know, as a rabbi, I officiate a lot of funerals, and I am with families in some of the most vulnerable times of their lives, when their loved ones are dying or when their loved ones have already passed. And I will say that although there's no such thing as being prepared for someone in your family to die, there's just no way. I mean, even if you know when it's going to happen, it's still a shock. Even if you've done everything you can possibly do to prepare for it, it's still a shock. It still hurts every single day. But you have to think about what happens when a loved one dies. There's a switch that's shifted, and we immediately go into, okay, here are all the things that we have to do now. All a clergy person, whether it's a rabbi or minister or whatever, or an imam or whatever, call a funeral home, make sure we get all the arrangements that we need to take care of done. Make sure we have a burial plot for the cemetery, and so on and so forth. There's so many organizational things that have to be done. It would be better for us and easier for us in those moments if we did everything we could possibly do to prepare. Um, there's something called a pre-need, or there's other names for it, and what that is a person contacts a funeral home where they know that they want who they know want to handle their affairs when it's time, and they fill out some paperwork and they take care of all the stuff they need to get done in advance, so that when the time comes, when it is time for them, when they die, their loved ones and those that are left behind are not struggling to figure out all the things that need to be done. And it makes life for those that are left behind so much easier. I will tell you that, although I mentioned a few moments ago that there's no such thing as an easy death for family members who are left behind, the families that have been the most prepared, they had time to dwell on their mourning. They had time to be with their family members and time to be with their friends, and begin the mourning process, which made it easier for them, because either they had, in advance of their parents or loved ones dying, had taken care of all of the proper paperwork and all of the proper needs, or their parents or their loved ones had done it themselves. It's really a matter of calling a funeral home, speaking with the funeral director, saying, what do I need to do so that when my time comes, everything is taken care of? And it's nobody wants to think about it. Nobody wants to think about death and dying until it comes to the very end, and then it's frantic. You're frantic. I've worked with families before who had nothing in advance done, no directions, nothing was in a will or any kind of directive, and they didn't know what to do. And so I held their hand and helped them make the proper phone calls and make the proper arrangements. And of course, I'm happy to do all of that. But when things are done in advance, it makes it so much easier for those family members to begin the mourning process. So, if you have questions about that, please feel free to reach out to me through my blog or through my podcast here, or contact me through my temple. I will certainly be happy to give you the information, the name and contact information of those who could be helpful to you wherever you live. If you're in the Ocala area, I certainly have a contact here. I'm happy to get that information out to you. It just makes life easier for those that we leave behind. You don't have to wait till you're 80 years old to get this going. I'm not saying you need to do it when you're 20, but when you turn 55, 60-ish, or whatever, and it's better to have things planned out in advance. It just makes it easier for the loved ones that you're leaving behind, because they're going to be plenty bereft and plenty sad already, and makes it easier. It's easier transition for you and for them as well. That's my podcast for this week. I'll be back again next week, and I wish you an early Shabbat Shalom. See you next week.